Hello, anyone who's a new subscriber. Since I did the collab with Teching, welcome to the channel. I hope you enjoy other videos that I'm going to be putting up and that I have put up. So if you want to see my thoughts on previous chapters, I put a playlist. I made a playlist for them, so that'll hopefully help there. So before I go into the chapter for One Piece, I wanted to point out something that has been popping up in my news feed this week. Right now, in honor of the anniversary of One Piece, in Las Vegas, on the Las Vegas Dome, they are showing images from One Piece. So, like, giant version of, Luffy as Nika and everything like that, and other fun One Piece things have been playing on the dome in Vegas, which is pretty cool. And then Oda also did a drawing for it, which is just adorable, of like just Luffy's face on the dome, which is just so cute. So I wanted to point that out because that was popping up in my news feed a bit this week, and I thought it was kind of interesting. On to the chapter. Okay, so chapter 1117, titled Mope. Part of the word got cut off. We'll have to wait and find out what that answer was. So, before we go into what's going on Egghead and other places around the world, first we have to do the cover story with Yamato, and Yamato has apparently decided to go and visit the Yakuza world in Wano. He is stopping by and he is talking to, well, he's hugging Nekomamushi, which can you blame him? I'd hug Nekomamushi as well. And seeing Nekomamushi and Hirogoro, and he's just like, time to visit the honorable world of the Yakuza. So we get a nice little thing here for that. To be fair, since we don't know exactly how quickly Yamato left on his journey, around Wano, after the Straw Hats left, Yamato probably, like, this part here is probably taking place before all this message is happening at Egghead Island. Everything is happening at Egghead Island. So probably just what's going to happen is, like, maybe we'll get to the end of this part here with, like, Yamato's little cover story, and then Yamato will get back to the capital after roaming around Wano and just get told what happened over the Den Mushi by Momonosuke and Kinemon and stuff like that. And Yamato's going to be like, I wonder what he was going to say. He's like, type of thing. So we'll see what happens there. Into the chapter. So first, we start off on Pirate Island, so Hachinosu. And we see a bunch of pirates that are just like the riffraff pirate. Well, most of them are riffraff pirates. I'll get to that in a second. Most of them are riffraff pirates. And they're just, like, what does that even mean? It was just like, so there's a bunch of treasure down there on the ocean floor. It's not like, and someone else is like, you pea brain. It's not like the world is full of cities of gold. No, that was Shandora, and it got shot into the sky. And technically, it's not on your version of your world anymore. It's up in the white sea on Skypiea. So you're not getting that. So that's not there. And they're just like jabbing and blabbering about, it's like, it's all 200 meters deep. You'd be sea beast chow if you even went looking. And then they're just like, yeah, but, aren't there ships that can dive down there? And it's just like, yeah, there are submarines in the One Piece world. We've seen them. Law had one. Kind of got destroyed by these guys' boss. Which we should be getting to fairly shortly in the anime, I think. So yeah, that is possible. And they're just like, yeah, but how the devil would how the devil would we afford one of those submarines? I'm pretty sure submarines are probably pretty expensive. Pretty sure Law just like kind of found and stole his. I don't know if we ever find out the answer to that. I would assume that like the Marines have submarines. It's like, that doesn't seem like technology that's outside of their purview. And such. So I would assume the Marines would have submarines. But, we'll have to see. And they're just like, well, we've had better luck trying to court some mermaids. And we're just like, I'd do anything to meet one of those. It's just like creepy pirates. And we just got like this pretty image of like this mermaid swimming through underwater ruins probably. And then there's a sea beast in the background, or a sea king in the background, one of the two. But the thing, of course, that most people are freaking out about in regards to what we see in literally like the first panel of this chapter is the fact that we see 3 characters we have not seen in, and I did the math here, since chapter 67 or episode 29, which is 1051 chapters ago, and the last time we saw these characters for when that chapter came out was November 21st, 1998. I was 6. I was 6 canonically in regards to when this came out, not in the anime and not in when the English dub of this part of the anime actually came out. I was 6. I had no idea what One Piece was. Closest reference I had for anime was probably Pokemon, if that, or whatever the heck they ran on Toonami in regard to, like, you know, Sailor Moon and Cardcaptors and whatever else. If they even had those running at that point in time on Toonami, I don't remember exactly. I was 6. I may have been in Florida when this came out. Depending on how it landed for when our family went on our trip to Florida. I don't remember. I was very young. But, of course, I am referring to the Krieg Pirates. We get to see Krieg, Pearl, and Gin, who is the one that everybody actually cares about, because nobody cares about Krieg or Pearl. Or if you do, I'm sorry, I don't know. Gin's the interesting one here. Gin has a sword now. Pearl's still in his stupid armor. Krieg seems to be in his stupid armor, although I'm assuming he got it fixed and possibly strengthened. Yeah, we have not seen these guys since Baratie. And this is so funny because my niece, who is going to be 21 soon, just started watching One Piece. And I mean, like, I've talked about One Piece. I've mentioned stuff to her. She's aware of some of the things. Not everything, but, like, bits and pieces. And her and her fiance started watching One Piece, and they are currently at the Baratie arc. So I'm going to have to be like, if she ever asks if we ever see Gin again, I'm going to be like, I can't tell you one way or the other because that's spoilery. But yeah, the last time we saw Gin, and a lot of people are going to be pointing this out, of course, in other chapter reviews for this same chapter, is the fact that last time we saw Gin, him and Krieg and Pearl and the rest of the crew that were somehow still alive, and a lot of whom were poisoned because of Krieg's gas, were sent adrift on this, like, little dingy ship that they got from the Baratie that in all honesty, probably should have sank in regards to how many people were stacked on top of it. And Gin's just like, yeah, I'll see you in the Grand Line to Sanji, and then they just go off, and then we haven't seen anything. Nothing. So yeah, lots of funny memes are coming out of this, including a Harry Potter meme of Cornelius Fudge going, he's back. So, funny bit there. Okay. Moving on to, I'm going to say probably other important things in this chapter, but other people that we haven't seen for a while. Well, we've seen them in a cover page. So then we cut to the other half of the Grand Line, the Paradise side of the Grand Line, where we are interacting, where we get to see the Sariyama Alliance again, which is, of course, Cricket and the other two whose names I don't remember, that are like the weird monkey brothers or whatever that kind of look like monkeys. Probably have mink ancestry somewhere in their, mink genetics somewhere in their ancestry, but we're not sure exactly how that, trickles down. They're just happy we get to see their ships. And they're just like, that was even before Noland's time, because of course they love Noland. Of course, Cricket is a descendant of Noland. And they're like, yeah, what an incredible story. And Cricket's just like, yeah, that sounds romantic, doesn't it? And they're just like, yeah, anyone else up for another diving expedition? So it was like the last time we saw them, I mean, like, we saw them in like a cover page, Decks of the World cover page a while ago after the 2-year time skip where, like, they were off on another journey. But, like, yeah, after everything that happened in Skypiea, like, they're down on Jaya and they hear the Golden Bell and they're like, okay, we've proven where Skypiea is, or we have enough of a proof for us is where Skypiea is and where the, Shandora is. So let's go find the city of, let's go find the Emerald City or whatever it was that they wanted to go after. Yeah, so it's nice seeing them. Then we cut to where we get some other Marines who are listening to this whole thing, and this is where we cut to GS, which is the Navy General Hospital. I was going to make a George Clooney joke, but he was on ER, not General Hospital, so I won't do that. So we see that a bunch of the different sword members who were the ones that had been on Hachinosu and had escaped, including Koby and Hibari and everything like that. We see Hibari has been thawed out. And they're just talking, and she's like, Koby senpai. And then we see Hamapper, and he's like, this must be about the One Piece. And she's like, and Hibari is just like, it really makes you think. And Koby is just sitting there, who's like, he's very much bandaged up, because he took probably a lot of damage with, his honesty impact. He's like, I'm gonna pass out. I'll write everything down later. It's hard to keep up with all the thoughts pacing around my head. Poor Koby. And then we see Prince Groose and Kujaku in the background, and they're just like, and Kujaku is just like, I just saw the captain. His recovery is going well, but he wants his space. They're referring to Drake. I'll get to Drake in a second. And Koby's like, yeah, hey, things are really coming to a head, aren't they? And he's looking at Prince Groose, and Groose is like, yeah, sounds like we're going to get some hard-to-hear answers soon. Kujaku's like, it's our turn to step up. So, thus far, we have not seen anything that would depict that, like, Kujaku or Prince Groose seem to be, like, the bad types of Marine. Same thing with Hibari. Even if her father is a Kainu, she does not seem to embody his ideals of absolute justice and everything like that. And Kujaku might be kind of on the same range in regards to her opinion of justice as her grandmother, as Suru. So, and we haven't necessarily seen much of, like, Suru having, like, that absolute justice kind of contact. She uses her devil fruit to, wash away pirate sins. Yeah, she'll lock them up, and then she'll, like, wash away parts of their sins and help them feel better, I guess. And I don't think Kujaku, or, Suru never struck me as someone who's just like, he's a pirate, kill him. That's never been something that she's struck me as in any of the time that we've seen her. So there's that, and Kujaku may have inherited some of that. They may have a much better relationship than Hibari has with Akainu, if Akainu is her father, and I like that theory. So we'll see. Sword may be getting the chance here to step up, so we'll see what happens with that. We cut to where we see Drake, who's in just the hospital room, also listening to, what's being played. And given the fact that Drake had been undercover as, a pirate, and he pretty much, for all intents and purposes, was a pirate, and then he worked for Kaido and everything like that, and of course he turned against Kaido on Wano, and we weren't exactly sure what happened to Drake on Wano, if he died or whatever after the Battle of Onigashima. He lived. Yay. I love it when he does that. Doctor Who reference. But he was pretty badly injured. He probably managed to find his, get his way off the island. We don't know exactly how. That's not necessarily important, but he managed to get his way off of Wano, and now he's here. Because the last time we saw him was him talking to Hawkins. And then Hawkins probably died. I'm fine if Hawkins is dead. I really don't care if Hawkins is alive or dead. Drake, I like. Hawkins is annoying. Then we cut to somewhere in the oceans of the New World, and we see something that we haven't seen for a while. Again, full of callbacks in this chapter. We see the Billower bike, which is Smoker's bike that he powers by using his smoke fruit to make the bike work. So he's riding along on the waves. Wonder if he's borrowing that idea from Aokiji, from Kuzan, because he did that with his bike. And he's on the snail talking to Tashigi, trying to figure out where she is, and she's just like, yeah, I'm at the General Hospital. So they're heading that way, so we finally see Smoker. We haven't seen him since the end of Punk Hazard, so finally we get to see Smoker, so that's nice. And then we're going to cut back to where we see other people who are just watching Vegapunk's message I just played. I don't think we know what island this is. It doesn't look like it doesn't immediately ring any bells to me. But Vegapunk's message continues, and he's just like, I realize I have been quite vague on this point. However, I can't add anything further other than pure speculation. And they're just like, keep going. What did Roger leave behind? Because this is on the tail end of the fact that he pointed out that, like, well, the Roger pirates probably knew about what happened and they didn't do anything, or what was going to happen and they didn't do anything about it. Which a lot of people have been speculating about in the past 2 weeks in that regard for, why Roger didn't do anything. Then we cut back to Egghead, where we see Nami and her group are on the Sunny. We see that the clouds, the island clouds, have expanded quite a bit, and that the laser grid is going down. So that means that they're going to be able to get out. Just like, we're going to have to get, we got to get out of here now. And Chopper is just like, the clouds have stopped stretching. And Usopp was like, don't worry, this is more than enough. We should be able to reach the sea, no problem. And then Lilith points out, yeah, the only issue is, like, we'll be landing right on top of a fleet of ships. Which is pointing down at where we see the Giant ship, which I don't remember if you've ever gotten a name for it, but the Giant ship for the Giant Warrior Pirates. And then we see all of the different Marine ships around them, which, like, just dwarfs the Marine ships, but the Marine ships are still, like, the whole concept of, like, ants fighting an elephant. If you add enough ants to the pile, they might win. And in this case, it's bunches of Marines and ships attacking this giant ship. And we see Brook down getting everything ready in the cola room, and he's just like, I've loaded the cola barrels. We can blast off at a moment's notice. And Nami is just like, yeah, but that's great, but we still gotta wait for, Jinbei and Zoro. And then we cut to Jinbei and Zoro, who are just running with Jinbei carrying Zoro, which is just a great way to prevent Zoro from running away or getting lost. It's just stay. I'm going to hold on to you. You can't run away now. You can't get lost if I'm holding you. Then again, he got lost while riding on the back of, I think it was Komichio in Wano, on the way to a building he'd been to before to go talk to Kinemon. So, Zoro and getting lost. Fun plot point, but just really, dude. And Jinbei is like, it's either Jinbei or Zoro that says it. Really, we wound up chasing after a strange monster, and they're just like, huh? This is no time for detours. Get over here now. And he's just like, I'm not taking a detour. It's the monster's heading straight for you. Look sharp. So we're seeing them chasing after Venus Jiro as he's running, and he just dwarfs the Sunny. Which, because we get, like, a good shot of him coming up by the Sunny, and he just makes the boat look small, which, again, gives us these size comparisons for how big these guys are in these forms. Because, like, from what we've seen, maybe they're a little bit taller on average in their regular human forms than they are in their giant beast forms. They might be bigger, slightly bigger on average. I don't know if we've seen them compared to, like, an average-sized human. We've seen them next to a Kainu, and a Kainu's bigger than normal, but I don't remember if we've actually had full-on, like, size comparisons for the Gorosei against, like, just, like, an average-sized human. Them being a little bit bigger would make sense, but I'm not exactly sure about that. But in these forms, they are just gigantic. And Nasjiro is running at the ship, and he's drawing his sword. By the way, his hybrid form is, I think, my favorite out of the hybrid forms. With, like, just, like, him on top with, like, the torn up robes and then, like, the skeleton horse body. That just looks awesome. That is going to look so freaking cool when this is animated, when they get to animating this. These guys are just going to look amazing in animation, I hope. When we get to that for the anime. Same thing with, like, yeah, I just love his as, like, the hybrid form, and then, like, I think is my favorite because I love horses, and I just like that. But he's, drawing a sword and getting ready to attack. And I think it's Zoro that's saying this. There's something special about his presence. And then we cut to where we see Chopper, Usopp, and Lilith looking up, and they see the Elder, and their eyes are doing the eye-popping thing that keeps happening when a bunch of them saw Luffy as Gear 5th for the first time on Wano. Which I just showed my mom those episodes, and she's just like, oh, good lord. In regards to watching Luffy treat Kaido like a jump rope. She thought that was funny. And they're just like, oh my god, it's an Elder, and they're just like, what in the world? And then we have it where, okay, I'm going to throw out a Marvel reference to you, but first I'm going to explain what's happening here. So we have Jinbei decides to use Fishman Jutsu Kata Garuma, and he takes Zoro and he throws Zoro, and then Zoro goes into using two sword style. I'm going to butcher these and I apologize. Shikahafi's Bliss Roshamon, and he collides with Nosjuro, and Zoro is just using his two sword style, so he's just like, blocking the blades. So it's all three of these blades coming together, which I'll get to in a second. And Zoro is able to block this attack. It is gonna knock him away in a second, but he does manage to block the attack so it doesn't hit the Sunny. But I love this because what Jinbei did, this is something they do in Marvel all the time. It's called the fastball. It's called the fastball attack, and it's where it generally involves Wolverine and someone else within Marvel. Generally, it's Cyclops, or not Cyclops. Generally, it's Colossus from the X-Men, as well, the giant guy that can turn himself like metal. And it's basically, he puts Wolverine on his hand, and then he throws him, and then Wolverine goes flying, and then he's able to attack an opponent further away. They did something similar in Dressrosa where I think it was Orlumbus threw Zoro to get him really far across the kingdom. On Dressrosa, they did something similar to that with Zoro, so Zoro's had this done before to him. But in this case, it made me think of the fastball special from Marvel, where they do this, and I have no idea if they're going to be able to pull this off in any of the movies. I would love it if they did that. I don't know if that's going to pop up in the new Deadpool and Wolverine movie, because I have no idea if Colossus is supposed to be in the new one, and even if he is, I don't know if they're going to have this be a part of it, but I love it because they've done it multiple times throughout the comics, where they just take Wolverine and throw him. But there's a funny bit where at one point in time it has to be She-Hulk that throws him. And she's just got him, and she's just and she's very big compared to Wolverine. And to be fair, in the comics, Wolverine is shorter than normal. He's very stout than how Hugh Jackman portrays him. He's very stout in the comics, but Hugh Jackman still does perfectly as portraying Wolverine. But she's getting ready to throw him, and she's just usually you're the guy, right? And he's yes. And she's just you got a tight little butt back here. And he's first rule about the fastball special, we don't talk about the fastball special. And then she throws him. But it's so funny with that, because I love that bit. I love that bit in the comics. So that's basically Zoro is getting fastball special by Jinbei, which just made me so happy. But then we get into the aftermath of this collision, which is where, or kind of the moment where it's happening, where Zoro and Venusaur, where all three of their swords meet, and as we look at them, we get this really cool shot of all three of these swords together. And first of all, Venusaur's sword is just so big compared to Zoro's, because he's just so huge. And I don't know if that's supposed to be his powers affecting the sword to make the sword bigger, because when we see him in his human form, it looks normal sized, and then now he's in the Bokotsu hybrid form, and it's just gigantic. So sword changes size, which I'm sure has been pointed out already in the fact that it's much bigger than it should be. But they all clash, and I think it's Zoro that's just a Katetsu blade, because Zoro, of course, has one of the Katetsu blades. He has the Nidai? No, he has the Shodai, I think. Wait, I don't remember. He has one of the Katetsu blades. The blue one got left on Wano, I believe, with Sukiyaki, I believe. And then Zoro has one, and then now this is supposed to be the other Katetsu blade, because there's three of them. And it looks like the one that Nosjuro has is the first generation Katetsu, and then I think Zoro has the third generation Katetsu blade, which is the one that he got back at Logtown way back before they entered the Grand Line. Don't ask me which is which. I don't remember. I'm sorry. That didn't stick in my head. But so Zoro seems to recognize it. And they all have very similar patterns on them, which is kind of nice. And they also have very similar guards, as we've seen depicted multiple times, where it's just like they're very similar guards to what Zoro has, so it has to be the last one of the Katetsu blades, the first one. So Zoro and Noshiro get knocked back from each other, and Noshiro gets knocked back just as much as Zoro does. The Sunny is fine. Jinbei catches Zoro, and Nami is like yelling at them, and then Zoro is just like, launch the ship already, we'll jump on. And it's just like, there's no time to waste. So supposedly this is just going to lead into them doing the Kude burst to get sent off the cloud. And then, I don't know if they could do like a half-powered Kude burst so it doesn't knock them as far, but like they do need to get far, but they also, like, staying with the pirate ship would be a good idea. Also, they need to stay within close enough range of the island that Jinbei and Zoro would be able to get back to them. Because Sanji, who we'll see in a little bit, is on the pirate ship already, or is on the giant ship, but it's like Luffy, you know, we're going to get a bunch of catch-up on them in a minute, but Zoro and Jinbei are going to need to do something to deal with Noshiro, and then, yeah, I mean, like, Jinbei's a fisherman, so he's going to be able to, like, swim in the water just fine to catch up with the ship, and it's not like Zoro can't, like, ride on his back. He's been doing that anyway right now, but, you know, ride on his back to get to the ship, one of the ships or the other, that's their ally ship in regards to either the giant ship or the Sunny. But, you know, they're going to have to figure that out pretty quickly, and they're going to have to get away from Noshiro pretty quickly, but I don't know what's going to happen there. So, cutting down to below the clouds, down to the northeast coast of the island, we see Bonnie is shouting that Straw Hat isn't even, you know, still isn't here. And she's just like, hurry, we can't hold them back much longer as they're, you know, the Marines are attacking the ship. So we see some of the other vice admirals that we've seen. I think we see Kadar or whatever his name is, and some of the other ones are there yelling. And he's just like, sink that ancient ship of theirs. Remember, it's just one vessel, even if it does look like it came right out of a legend. And then we see on the ship that Zoro and Atlas are both on the ship. So from what I can see that happened, from what we saw that happened, it was Noshiro had originally run around the island, froze all the different pacifista that were there, the Mark IIIs, so they weren't firing at the ships anymore. Then he was going to go around and try to cut down Bonnie to cut her out of that cycle so they could take over for the others again, take over the pacifista again if they cut her out of the cycle, or out of the hierarchy. And then what happened was he tried to attack them. Sanji showed up, whacked him in the chin, and then Noshiro headed up to go and try to deal with, he sliced through the dome, through the Labo phase, and such. So that happened, and that dropped down the Seraphim and the other CP agents that were there that were being held captive, which I kind of would like an update on them. I know that we saw them getting sucked into Worm Doom Jupiter in the last chapter, like getting sucked in by him, so I don't necessarily see them as surviving that. I also don't see them as being anything that's like worth the Gorosei putting in the effort to try to protect. The Seraphim, yes, trying to get the Seraphim back on their side or under their control. Esper, notwithstanding, depending on what happens with that, but having them under their control would be very useful to them. They are very powerful. So we'll see what happens with that. But so Noshiro is dealing with that right now, and he just decided to try to cut down the Thousand Sunny, which, to be fair, was probably a good idea in his opinion, and was a good idea anyway. But Sanji is like on the giant ship, and he's just like, our signal isn't getting through at all in regards to the communique signal that they have, and he's shouting at Luffy, and then we hear Luffy shout, and he's just like, we're here, get ready to set sail. And Zoro and Jinbei's like, yep, there's no question of who that loud voice is. And Atlas is like, all right, so they're getting ready to go. Also, I love the fact that, like, in this case, Atlas is going to feel small for, like, some of the first times in, like, her life, just because she's so used to being this giant individual that roams around Egghead, and she's so large compared to the other Vegapunk satellites and such. So it's just like her compared to the giants. she's still kind of small compared to the giant, so that's just kind of nice there. So we have this moment where we get this nice double page spread of like all these giants, and so we see Ormo and Kashi, and they're really happy to see their captains arriving, and they're, the captains are like, get the ship ready and everything like that for Dorian Bragi. And then there's like, leave it to us, Captain. Yep, set sail, turn the ship, and let's get out of here. And then the Marines are like, don't let them get away. And we see some of the other some of the other giant warrior pirates that we have here. So we get some other cool moves coming out of them, which will probably get a little bit more elaborated in the anime, which I'm fine with. I hope we get names for some of these guys too, because like beyond Dorian Bragi, Oimo, and Kashi, and then I think one other giant, I don't remember if we got names for that many of the other giants that were part of the original giant warrior pirates that were Oimo, that were Dorian Bragi's crew 100 years ago. Just over 100 years ago, whatever you want to go with. And they're just like, we see one with guns, we see one with like a bow and arrow firing off arrows and such, and we see the Marine that kind of looks like he's got like Oni blood in him. I don't remember what his name is, and I don't care. He's like, the pirates are from over 100 years ago. Don't be scared of fossils like them. And they're just like firing, and they're just, great double page spread here of just like the giants jumping out and like just ripping some of the Marine ships apart, and just chucking the Marines into the water. And that's one of the giants has like just like a giant thing of meat on the bone, like what Luffy likes, so that's just kind of funny there. And they're just like, shake them off, you bleeps. And they're just like, this is impossible, just like, fall back, get all the remaining ships in formation, or it's just like, give it everything you've got. And then we have Bluegrass showing up, which I like Bluegrass. One thing that I do like is that Oda seems to portray some of the female Marines as being slightly more competent than some of the male Marines, which is just funny, because like Suru is to a degree shown as being more competent than Garp and Sengoku, and even the three admirals at times, where she's just like, I am a tactician, leave me the F alone and I will tell you what to do in this regard. So it's just like that. And then we got Bluegrass here, who's just like, stop, talk about sloppy. You're all meant to be paragons of justice, remember? Don't settle for being another face in the crowd. Step up and be a star. And she uses because she's riding on top of the giraffe sea beast, mechanized sea beast. And she, with her ride fruit, she's able to control it. And then she has it fire one of the lasers at the giant ship. Very good idea. And they're just like, Vice Admiral Bluegrass, yay! And they're just like, oh my god, she punched a hole in the hull. She punched a hole in the hull of the ship. And then Dull pops up and she's like, and I'm gonna punch a hole in you. And is she attacking? I think she's attacking Oimo or Kashi. Again, I can never remember which one's which. She's attacking Oimo or Kashi, and she just goes, and she gets a really good hit in, multiple hits, and she's like, rock and roll blaster, which I'm like, that is a perfect name for her. And she just like, she's got like Janis Joplin vibes, so I love that. So she jumps up and hits him. And they're just like, wow, Vice Admiral Dull, her ferocity always sends shivers down my spine. So it was Kashi that got hit, because they're like, oh no, Kashi! So it was Kashi that got hit. And then we have just one of the other ones just like, keep going. So what if they're freaking giants? And now we cut to Luffy, who is looking behind him, and he's like, wait a second. And he's like, what happened to the giant boar that was behind us a second ago? The giant flaming one that we were having trouble fighting. Mercury is not following them anymore. And Dorian Bragi is just like, that's great. Now we just got to worry about boarding the ship. And Luffy's like, but where did he go, though? And they're just like, you said it. It's high time we set sail. Ga-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. And then we cut to where 4 of the other Gorosei are, because, of course, Nesjaro is up in the dome trying to deal with the Straw Hats, and is now kind of being derailed with that by Zoro and Jinbei. Which, good fighting force team there, I would say. And we see the giant, who has taken some damage, I think, but he's up and moving. And then we see the other 4 Gorosei in the background, Mercury and Mars and Saturn and Jupiter, all in the background, just very beautifully shaded in, just like ready to attack the giant. And then we cut back to the message where we just cut to one of these other islands. This This image kind of looks like it might be the Kano Kingdom, which is where Sai and Boo and such and Baby Five is now living, where they live, or at least where they're from. It kind of looks like maybe it's that a little bit, but I'm not sure. It's kind of hard to tell. The buildings look kind of similar, but it doesn't quite look like the same fashion style, so I'm not sure exactly. And Vegapunk is like, I have one last message I wish to impart. It is for those of you who are scattered across the world. And I'll get to what happens in the middle, but because like those of you who carry the letter D in your name. And we cut to where we see, as you know, in between this, there's this where Mars is like, wait, is that? And they're looking at the giant robot, and of course the Gorosei seem to be able to telepathically communicate with each other, so it's just like, yes, it is the very iron giant which rampaged through Marie Joie 200 years ago. There can be no doubt of that. And so they're getting ready to attack the giant. And Vegapunk is like, those of you who carry the letter D in your name. And they're just like, curse you, Vegapunk, is what they're screaming. And we cut to where we see several people who are listening to this. We see Dragon. We see Sabo, who is just like, Ace, Luffy. And then we see Kobe, who is just like, Luffy-san, Vice Admiral Garp. And then we see Blackbeard. And then we see Beppo, who is no longer in his Sulong form. And he's like, Captain? And he looks like he's gotten medical attention. We do not see Law. I will point that out perfectly. We do not see Law. And for Blackbeard, we cannot tell where Blackbeard is. We just see Blackbeard. He could be on Hachinosu already. He could be on one of the ships heading back from Wiener Island on the way to Hachinosu. We don't know. I was really hoping we get to see like Pudding in one of these chapters with like her listening in on what was going on here. But we haven't seen her at all in that regard. And they're just like... And he's like... Vegapunk is like, among you there is, and then and that's when he gets cut off, because we cut to where we see that Mercury has at least somewhat slammed into the giant warrior and sent it flying, and they are just, it's supposed to be, I think, a bunch of them all attacked it at the same time, and that this is at least knocking something around wherever the snail is inside of the giant, getting knocked around, so the snail might be getting like turned off or something like that, or at least knocked unconscious. There is still the possibility that the snail could wake up and continue the message, but I wouldn't be surprised if they just end up deciding to just try to like just tear this thing apart, tear the giant warrior apart. That the Gorosei might try that just to make sure that they can get to the snail and that they can fully deactivate the snail, so that way the rest of the message cannot be played. Which would be something. And so it just gets cut off, and there is the explanation that is in Japanese. He gets cut off as he says, Mo. This could be the start of an unknown word, or it could be a practical for also. So it's just like, among you there is also... or among there is a and so as I said, it could be a new word, it could be something else, something to do with the will of D. You know, we'll have to wait and find out how that ends up translating later on, or how that ends up getting fit into the explanation of the message later on once we get that information for whatever Vegapunk was going to finish saying. So there is that. But yeah, we see the giant get sent flying. The giant warrior gets sent flying. And they're just like, is that enough, Vegapunk? And the signal just that's cut off all over the world. And they're just like, it got cut off. And we see Vivi, and she's like, what was he about to say? And like we see Morgans and Wapol, and they're just like, D. And we just see, you know, some of the other Gorosei are just like watching as this is happening. And then we cut to the last panel of the chapter is York on the ground, on her knees, just like, it's over. And then like, finally, this message is over. Can I please get my reward now? It's just like, York's like, okay, I helped you stop the message. Can I please have my reward now of being a celestial dragon? I was helpful. Whether or not that's going to happen is still going to be left up for debate. Um, so we get to see that. We get to see several characters in this chapter that we have not seen for a very long time. We've seen the Sariyama alliance a little bit between now and then in like one of the cover pages and stuff like that for the Decks of the World, but not for a while. Gin and such is like Gin and Krieg and Pearl by an extension probably have like the one of the rewards or one of the records of like the longest it's been since we've seen this character in One Piece. Canonically seen this character in One Piece. But, well, no, Kuro, because we haven't seen Kuro for quite a long time as well. I mean, we saw him in the anime and like a filler scene, but other than that, we haven't seen him since then. Since everything happened at Syrup Village. Pretty much all the other ones we've seen. Morgan's we saw in like the Helmeppo Kobe cover page series and then in the Django cover page series. But other than that, we haven't seen him for a while. But yeah, there is the whole, I mean, like, yeah, a lot of people are going to be like, they're going to do videos. There's going to be a bunch of videos on people's channels right now about, like, Gin and where the F have him and the others been. How did they survive? They were poisoned. What happened? That's going to happen. There's going to be a whole bunch of stuff about, like, oh my god, what was Vegapunk going to say? What was he going to say about the Will of D? What was he going to reveal? You know, it's like we do kind of get, like, this thing where it's just, like, Vivi, again, has not been told that she is a member of the Will of D, that she has that because of Nefeltari D. Lily yet. That can be connected there. She doesn't know that yet. Sabo knows, but Sabo has not had the chance to tell her. And however much he would have told, Dragon and Ivankov, that's involved there as well. And of course, Kobe is familiar with the Will of D because, of course, Luffy and Garp, so he's familiar with that. Beppo knows about the Will of D to a degree because of Law, and I'm pretty sure Law told his crew, particularly Beppo, Sachi, and Penguin, who were like his closest compatriots, that, what his full name actually was. It was Trafalgar D. Water Law. And there's that involved, and of course, Blackbeard would be interested in this as well, because he does have an interest in history to a degree, and also it would be information that could be useful to him in regards to something to do with the Void Century, because we're pretty sure that the Will of D has connections to the Void Century. We're just not exactly sure how much of a connection yet. Is it, from the descendants of Joy Boy in regards to Joy Boy's will? We'll just have to find out. And yeah, I'm pretty sure that in regards to the giant, that since it, it got knocked down, so the snail either got knocked out or the signal just kind of disconnected for the moment, and there's the possibility that would be like a very interesting way of doing this would be in the next chapter would be to have it be that the Gorosei start trying to rip the giant warrior apart, so that way they can make sure that they can get to the snail and either just turn the snail off or just kill the snail, whichever one they want to go with, and get to it and just like rip the soldier apart in order to get to it. Now, just because they knocked it away and they caused damage to it in that regard, it may still be something that might take a bit of like clawing at to get into. Now, the worm may not be very useful in this situation. The boar keep knocking into it would probably still keep causing damage to it. Saturn might be able to work on like trying to pull it apart, and Mars as his Itumare form with his claws would probably be very useful in like ripping it apart. Now, if Nasjuro was there, they could probably, if he came down, he could probably like slice it apart or something like that. Which I know a lot of people wanted to see if he could slice it apart. And see how immune it was to slashing attacks. It does not appear to be immune to blunt object attacks, though, in the fact because it got blunt force trauma via giant flaming boar. But so there's that. But it will be interesting to see how that ends up playing out in the next chapter for like, we got a good catch up on like where all the other Straw Hats were. No Stussy or Kaku in this chapter, so we don't see them, and we still don't know what's going on with Lucci, and we didn't see any of the Seraphim in this chapter. Stussy may let Kaku, probably will let Kaku out in all honesty, however that would end up going. And then Kaku may go and try to get to Lucci, try to find Lucci so he can save his friend, and then they may just try to leave. We don't know. Stussy might try to go find Edison. I pointed that out, I think, in the last review, but we'll have to wait and see how that goes. But yeah, I love that we saw Gin again. I don't care about Krieger Pearl, but I love that we saw Gin again. I love that we saw the Sariyama Alliance again. That was kind of nice. We saw Doll do something badass, which I'm approving of. We know that Drake is alive. I know that's not really consequential to most people, but I liked Drake. I thought his design was cool. He turns into a dinosaur, and he has a better character arc, in my opinion, than Hawkins ever had. And we don't know enough about Arouge to like fit him in here. But you know, we got to see the three Katetsu blades all together in regards to Zoro and, you know, Nesjiro interacting and Zoro blocking Nesjiro's attack, so that was pretty cool. And Zoro and Jinbei at least know where the ship is. The ship's hopefully, the Sunny's hopefully going to get launched off in the next chapter or so. And hopefully they'll be able to get away from that. We finally saw Smoker again for the first time since Punk Hazard, I believe, since the end of Punk Hazard. So that's good. We know that the rest of the Sword people are fine. Minus Garp, give or take whether or not he's a member of Sword is left up for debate. But the rest of the crew, the Sword group, seem to be okay. So that's good. Injured in a lot of cases in regards, because like Helmeppo has like bandages as well as Kobe does. Hibari has a couple of bandages. So she got some good attack, or she got some hits taken, but she also got frozen solid. You know, so it's nice to see some of those again and get some updates on them. But I believe that's all that I have for this. As I said, everyone who's new to the channel after watching me do the collab with Tekking, welcome. I very much appreciate you subscribing. And I hope that you enjoy my content. So thank you very much and have a nice day. Bye.